You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
T-Wolves steamroll the Utah Jazz for their eighth win in a row. Final score 128-102. What's going on back in the lab? Back at it. Another T-Wolves postcast episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. Jack Borman with me as always. Give him a follow on X at JRBorman13. Jack, lots to get into in this one. I mean, how the Wolves have won 8 in a row plus Ant. It was on pace for over 80 points after the first quarter. We'll break that down. But first, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Game Time. Game Time, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so again, Wolves looking for their 8th in a row. Utah Jazz in town, a team that just beat this Wolves team just over a week or so ago. So Wolves come out looking great. They go up 14 after one. Ant had 21 alone in the first. That put him on a 84-point pace for the game. Jaden McDaniels in this one, though, he was the Robin to Ant's Batman, if you will. 20 points, 12 boards, 2 steals and a stock. Ant, by the way, finishes with 41. This one was over, man, with about 7, 8, 9 minutes left in the fourth. Starters got a lot of run, obviously, during the nuts and bolts. But, boy, after that 8-minute mark in the fourth, the young pups got a lot of run. We'll talk about that as well. But 11 games now, Jack, above 500, sitting at 40-29. Big picture, this team's cooking. During this 8-game win streak, here's my question. When you think about the national media attention, or maybe lack thereof, of this team and this 8-game win streak, what's one part of this team, or maybe a specific player or a phase of their game, that you think is going underrated and deserves a little bit more love and attention?
Yeah, I think it's just got to be what Jaden McDaniels has done on the offensive end of the floor. Really, the last 2 months or so, really since Dante DiVincenzo and Julius Randle went down. I mean, he's just been asked to do so much more with the ball in his hands offensively, and the way that he's been able to do that, consistently, but also do it efficiently is certainly something that's been super impressive. I know that people around the league probably think of defense immediately when they think of Jaden McDaniels, and especially on ball defense. But I think the Wolves have really tried to make an effort to play him off the ball defensively a little bit more, so they can save some more of his energy to be that secondary or tertiary scorer that's been really important for the Wolves so far, really in the calendar year of 2025.
I'm not even going to play the MVP graphic because I think it's kind of obvious tonight. Again, Ant with 41. What made him so explosive, or what was so unique about this 41-point game that Ant put up tonight?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the big thing for Ant this season really has just been his dip in efficiency scoring at the rim. And, last season Ant was up there near 70% at the rim, which is a great number. The league average is making about 2/3 of your shots, so 66, 67%. And this year Ant's down at 61%, which is well below average. It's even below average just for guards, but for someone that's as explosive and talented as Ant, and especially with the way that his, touch has really evolved as a shooter, you'd really expect him to be able to finish better than that at the rim. And tonight at the rim, he was 8 of 8 at the rim and 3 of 4 in that short mid-range area. So for him to go 11 of 12 in the paint was pretty remarkable. And I think, if you would have told me at the start of this game that Anthony Edwards would go for 41, I'd probably say, okay, made 7, 8 threes, and that just wasn't the case. He only had 5 He only had 5 tonight. But again, I think for him, the majority of his work coming inside the arc and getting downhill, getting to the free throw line and finishing inside is super important, because I think it just wears out a defense. And then, when he does get stopped, I think he's getting better and better as the season goes on at finding guys open in the corners or the slots, and then that kind of sets the defense in rotation. And the Timberwolves have a lot of different guys in this roster that play heavy minutes that can attack off the catch and are really smart decision makers with the ball in their hands. So I think that generated a lot of good offense for the Wolves. But I think, for Ant, it was just great to see him get off to a super hot start and give the Wolves some breathing room rather immediately. I mean, he had 19 points on 10 shots in the first 8 minutes of this game. The Wolves were up 28-12 at that point. capped off obviously by that huge poster dunk that he had. Just something about him playing the Jazz. But Ant himself outscored the Jazz 21-20 in that first quarter. It was his 9th career quarter of at least 20 points or more, on his 4th of the season. And then for Ant, I believe it was his 7th 40-point game of the year, which is 3rd in the NBA behind Nikola Jokic, SGA and Nikola Jokic. So, just great to see Ant get it going and once again lead the Wolves to another night scoring at least 120 points. They're now 15-2 when they score at least 120 points. And Anthony Edwards tonight passed Andrew Wiggins for 3rd all-time on the Timberwolves scoring list, which was a milestone that we had kind of been circling here for a little bit, but he officially passed him tonight.
Now that everybody is fully healthy, a lot of these guys, not just, we're back, maybe I'm at 90%. A lot of these guys hitting their peak. DDV, Julius, obviously, a couple great games, maybe not specifically tonight like we mentioned, but as of late during this 8-game win streak. What are you loving the most about this starting lineup? Because it felt like they were just awesome tonight. And specifically, how is it helping, I guess, the paint stuff? The paint scoring tonight, it felt like was a big part of why the Wolves were so successful.
Yeah, no question. That starting lineup, by the numbers were the best lineup that the Wolves had tonight. They won 46-24, so plus 22 in 13 minutes of play. So for them to score 46 points in about a quarter of action is incredible. They had 10 points off of turnovers, so I thought that when they were getting stops, they were doing a really good job of playing with better pace, which is something that we've talked about throughout this entire season, but is something that I think certainly they've renewed a commitment to, especially in the last couple of weeks here. And that starting lineup tonight was 7 of 8 from 3 when those guys were on the floor together, the team shot 7 of 8 from 3. So they generated a lot of really good looks. They had an offensive rating of about 165, which is just awesome. And they had an assist to turnover ratio of 11-2, which is, fantastic. Again, the assist to turnover ratio, league average is about 1.85 as a team metric. So, Wolves right there at about 5, which is exactly what you want. And then, I just think the added spacing from, everyone being able to shoot the 3 with, pretty good efficiency has really helped them open it up. And I just think the spacing as a whole between the bigs, I think, is something that we've talked about, especially since Rudy's come back. But they've just had Rudy playing in the dunker a little bit more and Randall playing in the middle of the floor, which I think has really helped. And I think not only has helped them create open 3-point shots, whether it be for Jaden or Dante, Mike, and whoever's kind of out there in that starting group. But then, if it's not a great 3-point look, I think this team's done a really good job of passing up great, good looks to get downhill and get great looks in the paint or make that extra pass for great 3-point shot looks. And that's super important. And the Wolves did that again tonight. It wasn't a night where, Minnesota was, overly reliant on the 3-point shot. They made 14 threes, which is a great number, but just 32.6%. And so they did a great job of just putting the ball on the deck and making great decisions when they got in there, whether it be to shoot or make those little wraparound dump off passes to Rudy that we saw a few times. Wolves had 66 points in the paint. Anything above 50 is a great number. So for them to have 66 is fantastic. They were plus 16 in the paint, and that was, nice to see them bounce back considering that they've struggled in that department a little bit. They've been, that differential average over the last 5 games been about minus 5.5, which is pretty brutal. Bottom 5 in the league there. So, and like I said, Ant shooting at the rim was huge, but his teammates followed suit as well. 26 of 34, 77% at the rim. So, 11 points above league average is awesome. And anytime that you make more attempts at the rim than your opponent takes, you're doing something right. So the Wolves had 26 makes at the rim. Jazz only took 22 shots at the rim. So Rudy Gobert had a great night as well, deterring guys from the rim. And, it helps too when you've got guys like Julius Randle and Jaden McDaniels out there who are just, kind of ball hawks on that offensive glass is huge as well. The Wolves had 16 offensive rebounds for 18 second chance points tonight. And they rebounded almost half of their misses inside the arc. And so, when you can do that, it's huge because a lot of times, when you're missing 2-point shots and the opponents are getting those rebounds, it's more often that those missed 2-point shots become runouts the other way rather than missed 3-point shots. So the fact that the Wolves were, really aggressive and crashing the glass on 2-point shots was huge. And I think, again, we talked about it the early part of the season that second chance scoring was really important just because the offense wasn't really clicking. And so anything you could do to create open shots for yourself was important. But now that the offense is clicking for the most part, I still think you want to be able to crash the offensive glass because, this team can really win games with offense. And that's not something that we're very accustomed to with the makeup of this Wolves team the last few years, but it's certainly a reality tonight and this season. So it was nice to see the Wolves do that.
100%. Great breakdown there. Plenty more deep dive from this one. I do want to ask you about the turning point of this game because this one got out of hand towards the end. Plus the young pups in the end got some nice run in garbage time. I'll ask you about those guys and who kind of looked the best in those last 8-9 minutes. That's all coming up, though, right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Right now, FanDuel's giving you a chance at a huge return with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 wager. Why I love FanDuel? When you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Again, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 bet. Go check it all out over at FanDuel.com. Get in on some NBA future action while you're there. Naz Reid, 6 Man of the Year odds. It's moved to 4-1 now. It's all sitting up over at FanDuel.com. Again, check it all out over at FanDuel.com and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 wager. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
This one's kind of tough for me. What was the turning point of tonight's game, in your opinion, Jack?
Yeah, I think, it was just kind of an avalanche at the end of that third quarter. The Timberwolves closed the third quarter on a 15-6 run over the last, 4.5 minutes or so. And the, two stars of the game tonight for the Wolves, Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels, had their hands all over it, accounting for, I believe, 14 of those 15 points. And they just made sure the Jazz weren't going to hang around. I mean, it went from a 14-point game where, Sexton was kind of percolating a little bit and Markkanen had missed some shots, but, obviously was in a rhythm in that first half. So you just never really know because a 14-point game could become 7 pretty quick. Or it could become, 20, 22, 23 pretty quick. And that's exactly what the Wolves did. They turned it into a 23-point game and, bought themselves a big enough gap where Chris Finch didn't really play key guys in that fourth quarter. So for only one guy tonight for the Wolves played more than 27 minutes, and that was Ant at 31 minutes. And I think Ant probably enjoyed being out there as much as he did, but I'm sure he was also, very, very happy to not have to play much in the fourth quarter and be able to jump up and down for his teammates that came in and, played for, almost the majority of that fourth quarter. So it was nice that the Wolves really had a game where opponent was pretty inferior and you'd like to see them blow them out. And that's exactly what they did. And it's even more important now that it's on the first night of a back-to-back for the Wolves with them welcoming the Pacers to Target Center tomorrow night. Right. So really important that Minnesota was able to get some rest. And yeah, another note too, Mike Conley didn't play tonight because of rest. Obviously wanted to make sure he was fresh for tomorrow night. So nice that, that didn't have any, adverse effects on the Wolves tonight either.
Let's check in on the young pups. Young pups, again, got some run tonight. 19 minutes for Shannon. Love that. 9 for Josh Minot. 9 for Joe Ingles. 9 for Dilly. Even Bones Highland got in on the action. 6 minutes. Who stuck out and made the most of that time tonight, Jack?
Yeah, I think it was Jalen Clark for me. And that's no disrespect to anybody else that played. There's just no one else that really jumped out in a meaningful way. But I think it's just the way that Jalen Clark makes his presence immediately known when he's out there because of how much of a disruptor he is on the defensive end of the floor. It is awesome to see. I mean, he had 2 steals pretty much right away when he got in the game in the first half. Had that steal off the inbounds and then had another one of those plays in the second half that became a layup going the other way. And then, offensively, I just really like that he's been a connective piece as a little bit of a playmaker, just making smart plays, playing off the catch, and then taking a dribble or two, and then just making really smart, high level passes that are, pretty easy passes, but, I should say high percentage passes. He's not trying to do anything that's too crazy. He's just making simple plays, doing it consistently, and, not turning the ball over too, which is what you want from a guy that, it isn't going to touch the ball very much, but can, help get some other guys going. And so I think the way that he's battled on the offensive glass, find some cutters, has been really nice as a bonus for the Timberwolves. In addition to everything that he's done on the defensive end, he was a +7 in 17 minutes. I was actually surprised that it wasn't more than +7, just because of, how well he played in that, really the first 3 quarters. And I'm sure garbage time, they were probably minus 5-ish. So he was probably closer to a +12 in the, non-garbage time minutes. But yeah, I just think the way that, Chris Finch has continued to be able to find minutes for Clark and then Shannon as well has been really nice, just because, the last thing I think you want to do if you're Chris Finch is just wear out your guys headed into the postseason.
Plenty more deep dive. I want to talk about this Pacers game tomorrow night on the back-to-back. Plus, I want to wrap up with what we'll be talking about tomorrow morning, and that's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by BetterHelp. BetterHelp, when your work schedule gets packed with could be any variety of thing, it's easy to let your priorities start to slip, even when we know what makes us happy. But when you feel like you got no time for yourself, the non-negotiables like therapy, they start to become more important than ever. If you've been thinking about starting therapy, maybe it's time to give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. It's so simple. All you got to do, you fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched up with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Go visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon. You're getting 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Okay, back-to-back here. Pacers up next tomorrow night, 7 p.m. tip. 37-29 on the year, pretty solid. I want to say 4 seed right now in the East. 5-5 in their last 10, though. They just lost their last game. Explain it to me like I'm 5. The Indiana Pacers, strengths, weaknesses, and more so, Jack, how the Wolves are going to match up with them tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think before we talk about that, I think you got to talk about who's going to be available for them tomorrow. So Pascal Siakam is out for personal reasons. So he's their second best player, has been their, really number 2 option behind Tyrese Halliburton with the ball in his hands, can create his own shot, get downhill, kind of walking, 22, 23, 5-5 type of player. And then Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, and Aaron Nesmith are all questionable with different ailments that they've got going on. But yeah, I mean, if Tyrese Halliburton plays, I think especially you're just going to have to get back defensively, because he wants to fly up the floor, make hit-ahead passes, hit guys in transition to create some easy scoring looks for them. They're 5th in the league in fast break scoring in the last 5 games at about 19 a game, and they're number 1 in fast break differential, about +9. So the Wolves tonight won by 10. That's going to have to be something that they look at again tomorrow night if they want to win. And then a big thing with Indiana is just, with them, a lot of times they're going to be the ones that are controlling the turnover game. So I think, they're 3rd in turnover percentage the last 5. They're 2nd in opponent turnover percentage in the last 5. And they're top 5 in both points off turnovers and opponent points off of turnovers. And so that all nets out to them being about +7.5 in that points off turnover differential game. And again, tonight for the Wolves, they were +10 in that category as well. So I think if whichever team tomorrow night can take care of the ball, I think that's going to be the team that comes out victorious, just because both of these offenses are very efficient. They score their points in a little bit of different ways, whereas the Wolves are more, really with their lineup fully constituted, they like to either score right at the rim or from 3. And Indiana's been a team that it's kind of used a little bit more of that whole floor, and it's done a better job of creating corner 3-point looks with that spread pick and roll look with Halliburton and Miles Turner. their kind of stretch five that they've got there. So it'll be interesting to see who all plays for Indiana tomorrow. But yeah, I think, the big two things are getting back defensively and, and then taking care of the ball. And then, they should be able to get inside and score in the paint. Indiana is not a very, big or physical front line, especially without Siakam. So I think it should be a good opportunity for Julius Randle to kind of get back into that, high teens, low 20s scoring, 6-7 rebounds, a few offensive rebounds and putbacks. And, hopefully it'll be a night that Naz Reid can get back on track, because he's really been struggling of late. He was just 2 of 10 from the floor tonight, did not make any of his 5 3-point attempts, but made up for it with some plays on the defensive end with 3 steals and a block. So a good opportunity for Naz to get back on the right track offensively.
Congrats, Jaden Berry just said in the chat, Finchy, 200 wins for the Wolves. Gotta love that. Didn't know that. That's awesome. All right.
This is what you'll be talking about.
Jack, what's the water cooler talk tomorrow at work after this one? What are Wolves fans texting in the Wolves group chats, I guess, tonight and tomorrow after this one?
Yeah, I think some people will be seeing that, 8-game win streak for the Wolves is their longest win streak in 21 years. So kind of hard to believe that the Wolves last year did not get to 8 in a row. I think they had 6 or 7 in a row a few different times last year. But yeah, I just think that, then on top of that, it's just got to be the ease with which the offense is operating. I think not seeing them being super reliant upon the 3-point shot like we've seen in a lot of these big wins that they've had. They've made 18, 20, 22 3-pointers or shot 45, 50% from 3. But, in some of their better wins this season, they haven't shot the 3 ball particularly well. They've played really hard defensively. And then they've gotten out and run off stops pretty well. And then Ant and Randall especially have done a good job of just kind of hanging around near the rim with, their physicality and just kind of wearing on teams. And then, when teams do stop worrying or are able to slow down Ant or Randall or Naz a little bit, that's when, Dante and Jaden have kind of come in with the body shots that finish the game off. So, just really fun to see all the different guys in the offense kind of get a touch early in the game tonight. The ball movement's been really strong. So I think it's just the way that the Timberwolves have, kind of turned arguably their biggest weakness, just spacing and ball movement and player movement on the offensive end of the floor into something that's been, really a huge positive for them, really since the All-Star break, but especially since all these guys have come back. I think the way that everybody has fit together and meshed and played with one another super well was better than I ever could have imagined. So I think, winning with offense is super important. And the nice thing too is that this team is still a really good defensive team with all the different guys that they have. And you can make up some of what they lost defensively last year if you just play really hard. And that's certainly what the Timberwolves are doing. And hopefully they can make it 9 in a row tomorrow night. And hopefully the Golden State Warriors stop winning these games, man, because
I was just going to ask you before we close out, man, what do you make of the West right now? Where are the Wolves sitting at? Technically at the 7, but they're also tied with the Warriors, 16 games behind OKC. So they're neck and neck again. To your point, Warriors with Jimmy B now, they can't lose, man. 7 in a row. Wolves got 8. Golden State's got 7, 9-1 in the last 10. 3. Well, let's see. No, 2.5 games behind the 5 seed, the Lakers at 13.5. But to Random Planet's point, 3.5 games out, Jack, from the 2 seed. I mean, how many games we got left here? Let's see, 15, 16? Where are we at? It's getting down to the nitty-gritty, I know that.
14.
14 games left,
13,
man.
14,
Is it 13? That's it?
13.
40 and 29. Okay. Yeah, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy when you look at, 40 wins in the West right now is in the 7 seed. And 40 wins in the East would be the 4 seed. I mean, it's just kind of crazy that, the Pistons are 5 games ahead of the 7 seed Hawks. The Hawks are below 500 in the 7 seed. It's just nuts how much different these two conferences are. But yeah, I think, you could tell me anything would happen really with teams falling in that 2 through 7 spot, and I would believe you. And the other thing too is you can't forget about the Clippers either. The Clippers are a game and a half out of out of the 6th spot, and Norman Powell came back for them today, and they've been missing him. So now they've got their big three of Harden, Powell, and Kawhi Leonard fully constituted, and Zubac is playing really, really well. So I just think there's, winning 8 games in a row is awesome, but the Timberwolves got to keep it up because their schedule into the, down the stretch and into the end of the regular season is super favorable. So I think they can't get complacent with any of this. And, I honestly think it might be a good thing that all these teams above them keep winning solely for the fact that, there's no nights off from here on in. And I think this team is going to, hopefully stay super focused and maintain this this fight and competitiveness that they've shown over the last couple of weeks and be in really good shape heading into the playoffs, as long as, knock on wood, no one gets hurt. So it's just a battle every single night. And I think as an NBA fan, it's exactly what you want in the sense that, all these teams have a ton to play for the next 5 or 6 weeks here down the stretch and into the playoffs. And we've just got a ton of super fun basketball ahead of us. So I hope that the Wolves can keep it going, because it's been a ton of fun to watch. And, hopefully we see some of these teams ahead of them start to run into the tougher parts of their schedule, and the Wolves start to be able to climb up a little bit, because it has been somewhat frustrating as a Wolves fan to see that they've won 8 in a row and they have made up no ground at all on the Warriors right in front of them. So
eventually though here, Jack, they got to start beating up themselves here, right? I mean, they can't both win some of these games, like you said. I mean, you've pointed out some of these, schedules that are coming up for a lot of these top 5, top 6 seeds in the West. And then again, they're playing each other. So eventually something's got to give here. But yes, so far been very frustrated to watch teams like the Warriors specifically just continue to win and get hot with Jimmy B. Great stuff, man, per usual. Wolves just blow the doors off the Jazz tonight, win their 8th in a row, 128-102. Everything just clicking right now, all at the right time. 40-29 on the year, 11 games above 500. As always, huge shout out to all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. All you guys coming in the chat with us from game to game. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Please go follow Jack on X at Borman 13, live from the Target Center. More games than not. Pacers up next. Again, back to back. That's tomorrow night, 7 p.m. tip. Catch you right here, same time, same place. But until then,